Hi and welcome back to BookTube with Amy. This is my most recent weekly wrap up and I'm also going to do my end of the year tag. So Merry Christmas, it is Christmas Day. Not for me here pre-filming, but for you watching. So Merry Christmas, hope you are having a lovely day and I hope that everybody spoiled you with lots of books from your wish lists. So being Christmas and extra festive, I decided that I would put on a Christmas dress and film in front of the tree. Like, even though it is like literally the beginning of December that I am filming this. But it's fine, like who needs an excuse, eh? So the first book that I have to talk about is The Power by Naomi Alderman, and I buddy read this with Ange from Angie's Book Chatter. We had planned to buddy read this, like no joke, probably the beginning of the year. And then both of us just kept getting distracted by other things that we wanted to read or other buddy reads and read-alongs and stuff that we were taking part in. So we ended up not even getting around to it until now. Like, it got to the point where we had said to each other, like, it's now or never, are we reading it or are we just like calling it off? We decided to read it. So all over the world, women discover that they have the power of electricity, and it is basically how society deals with the fact that women has these. I cannot talk. It's basically about how society deals with how women now have these powers and the ramifications of that, the repercussions of that. And I really enjoyed this book in the beginning. I was concerned that it would be very female focused, and no concerned, that makes me sound like horrible, but I was concerned that we wouldn't really get a lot of male perspective in it, and that is something that I really wanted out of this book. I felt like that would have been really interesting, not only to have women's perspective and how they are dealing with these powers, but also now to have men's perspectives and how they feel like their place in society has maybe shifted. So we do have one male POV in here, and I was really pleased about that. And I was also pleased that the female characters whose point of views we got were from different parts of the world. Again, I just didn't want it to be like this happened in England and like everybody's perspective that we get is English or America. There was parts of this book that were from the Middle East and from countries like Russia and stuff, so I was really pleased that it wasn't just like and it happened in New York or it happened in London type of book. So I was really pleased about that, and I was thoroughly enjoying it in the beginning. But then about halfway through the book it just sort of felt lost all traction for me, and me and Ange had planned to do how we do like our Zoom chats where we ask each other's questions and we chat about the book and stuff and upload that to our channels, but both agreed that we didn't really have a huge amount to say. So it wasn't the best. For me it was really lacking, well, a lot, but basically I was expecting to go into this and have it be really harrowing and for it to be men experiencing the things that women experience every day of their lives. So being catcalled and being sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, rape. And while it touches on those subjects slightly, I didn't feel like it went into enough detail. And there were only certain points where men were like, we are scared to walk down the streets, blah blah blah. I just felt like it didn't really get into that level of detail enough. And a lot of the time, a lot of the men in it weren't really scared. There was only certain facets of society that were. A lot of men were like, we're just going to murder you, and like that's fine because you're a weirdo. So I just didn't feel like it was as compelling as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be really thought-provoking, and perhaps like if a man was to pick it up and they were to read this book, they'd be like, holy shit, like I didn't realise that so many women experience stuff like this like every single day. And as a woman to read it, we'd be like, it is completely and utterly bang out of order that like we need to face this every day. And like I get that the power was a metaphor, like it's called The Power. So like I totally understand that, and like it was very much about trying to empower women to stand up for themselves. But again, it just felt like at times it was a bit of a checklist. Like our main characters' point of views that we get, who are females, it was almost like a list of boy jobs that she just recast as women roles. So there's like the politician and the religious leader and like the mafioso boss, and then the male point of view who we get is like the journalist, and there's like a couple of funny scenes where like the politician woman's like ogling the journalist, and obviously realistically in this day and age the roles would be reversed. So like that was funny, and there were parts like that where it was quite humorous, but it just didn't really give me what I needed out of it. I felt like a lot of the female characters were really unlikable, and I felt like how everybody's stories kind of came together didn't really make sense, so that was just quite lacking for me. In the end, I ended up rating it a 3-star. It was enjoyable, it just didn't give me what I was looking out of it, and it didn't really rock my world, so it's quite middle of the road. I think Anne rated it 3 stars as well, but I'll link her video down below where she chats about it. Oh yeah. So then I read Unsolved Murders, and this is by Emily G. Thompson, who also wrote Cults Uncovered that I read a couple of weeks ago, and Amber Hunt. So I had picked this up, we were out and about, and I just decided to get it because I enjoyed Cults Uncovered. It was quite a quick wee read. Although I wasn't a huge fan of the formulaic writing style, I thought I'd give this another go. I am really interested in Unsolved Murders, so I thought, like, who doesn't want to get into the Christmas season by reading about unsolved murders? So that's what I did. Unfortunately for me, this one followed the exact same pattern as the last one did. It was very much an intro to here is the victim, here is the killer, like, or who the suspected killers were. Here is what happened, like, and this is sort of where we are now, whether it's a cold case or not. And again, like, as much as it was interesting because there were some unknown unsolved cases in this that I hadn't really heard much about before, I just wanted something a wee bit more in depth, and I thought that maybe this one would have been, but unfortunately it wasn't. So for that reason alone, I rated it a 2-star, and I probably wouldn't pick up another one by Emily G. Thompson at this stage, just because I really am not a fan of that writing style. Like, if I'm reading about a cult or I'm reading about a true crime, then I do want it to be something quite in-depth, and like, I appreciate that for a lot of these they're either cold cases or there's maybe not much known about the cults if people from the inside haven't came out and told their story, so there isn't a lot of new information. It doesn't need to be new information for me to be interested. Like, I will read about Jonestown over and over and over and over again, even if there is no new information, just because it interests me. All I ask for is that you're giving me all the information, and I just felt like it wasn't. It was just a wee quick snapshot. Here's an unsolved case, boom, on to the next one, and I just didn't enjoy it. So 2-star, I'll only pick another one up. Then, because we're getting into Christmas, and I feel like sort of October, November, December for me are always either creepy, spooky, murder, spoopy books, or YA fantasy. I mean, that's pretty much my reading taste most of the year, but specifically at Christmas. So I decided to pick up Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. Now, when we moved house earlier this year, I did the entire Raven Cycle audibly while I decorated the house, and again, like, I fully intended just to read the first one in the Raven Cycle to see if it was my bag, and then I binged it book after book. So I was like, let me pick up Shiver. I really enjoyed Maggie Stiefvater's writing the last time I read her. Like, this could get me into like the spooky mood, the Christmassy cozy feels. It's set in a town, there are loads of forests and loads of weather chat as well, so I was like, this could get me properly cozy. So we have our main character Grace, and she was attacked by wolves when she was younger, and ever since then there's been a main wolf who is always sort of hanging around her house, and she sort of sees him everywhere, and she feels like they have a wee bit of a connection. And years later she bumps into this wolf as a man, and they form a teenage romance. And the man's name is Sam. So Sam's a werewolf, and it's all about Grace and her family, her friends, Sam and his pack of werewolves, and their werewolf relationships with the town and the townspeople. And I devoured it. Like, it was so good. I don't know why, right? I've never really bought into werewolf romances before. I have been like a vampire diehard. Like, I was Team Edward, you know what I mean? Like, I was no Team Jacob here. I wasn't sure going into this 100% how I would feel. But I know from the Raven cycle, I really enjoyed Maggie's writing, and I really liked the world she built, and her characters were developed brilliantly. So I thought if there was ever a werewolf romance that was going to get me on board, it was probably going to be this. And like, boy did it get me on board. It was phenomenal. The setting in the woods and this town, like, I could picture it so vividly in my head. As much as there was, you know, like, awkward teenage romance bits in the book, I didn't feel like that was the entire plot, so I could sort of get by with it. And the plot point was absolutely fantastic. There was so much history involved that we found out about the wolves, and so much science and theory behind their changes, and it was just fantastic. I really shipped Grace and Sam's relationship. I felt like in this YA fantasy it was really interesting because sort of on a similar theme to Twilight, you know, Sam's sort of the more emotional, reserved kind of guy, and Grace is quite upfront about like how she's feeling and the fact that she wants to, you know, do some things. So I felt like that was interesting as well, and Sam's such an emotional character. That's not something that's often portrayed in YA fantasy. I feel like in a lot of YA fantasy, if a male love interest is sort of like tender and affectionate and open about his feelings, which like is what we all want, then he also has to be a complete and utter dick to begin with, and you need to get to that point, and he is no like that around anybody else, so it's only you that ever sees that side of him. And I didn't feel like that was the case for Sam. Like, Sam was just very open about how he felt about things, very open with his emotions, which like we love, and was like just so ride or die for Grace for the get-go and made no apologies for it. So Sam was just like an absolutely great teen love interest. I think that like he's who we would all want our daughter's first boyfriends to be. He's great. And I really liked Gracie's character in this because, again, I feel like a lot of female protagonists in YA are like so badass and so like on top of everything, and they know exactly what it is that's needed of them, and they just step up and they get it done. Whereas Grace in this did really rely on her friends. She really relied on Sam, and was like sort of a teenage girl. Like, and she wasn't just a teenage girl for the fact that she was written a bit younger. Like, she acted like a proper teenage girl, which was really cool, because I think that like they're teenage girls until a fairy pops up, and then all of a sudden like they're sword wielding assassins, unless they're a 16-year-old girl. Whereas Grace, I felt in this, was written younger, she was portrayed as younger, and her actions really contributed to that. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a 5-star read for me. It was great, and so then it was absolutely no surprise to anybody when I just jumped right onto the next book. So then I moved on to Lingar, which is the second book in it, and I picked both of these up one day when we were at the charity shop. And so I had not looked into whether it was a trilogy or a duology or a quadrology or like 18 books in the series. And as soon as I moved on to the second one, I was like, I'm gonna need the next one, like if this is a trilogy. So I looked it up, and there was another book in the series, and there was also like a collection of short stories or a novella also set after that, so I bought both of them, and I'm planning to read both of them. So Lingar was the second book, and the first book sort of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, and so when the second book came about, I was like, yes, love it, like need it right away. And it was fantastic. You are introduced to a couple of more characters in this one than we were in the first book, which I really enjoyed. I felt like that just added a wee bit of freshness to it, and there are some characters for the first book who have sort of moved away. like from the story, so it was nice to get characters to replace them. And in this second one, the first one's just from Sam and Grace's perspective, but in this one we actually get it from other characters' perspective as well. And I am slightly dubious when books do this, because I have been stung before. So I adored the Red Queen series to begin with. I read the first 2 books and I thought they were fantastic. Couldn't wait to get to the third one. We were actually on holiday and I'd finished the second, and we like hightailed it to a bookshop nearby so that I could try and get the third. Managed to get it, and then was just like, hate it, because Victoria Aveyard started writing in other characters' perspective that we hadn't had before. But like didn't change anything about how she was writing. And so it just felt like we were reading it for these other characters' perspective, but with a brand new name, and it really just let me down. I ended up not even finishing the series. I don't even think I finished the third book. I think I DNF'd it like halfway through, because I was just like, I am not here for this. So when I had picked this one up and it started doing that, I was like, oh god, is this going to kill it? Because I absolutely loved the first one. But you will be pleased to know it did not. It was phenomenal, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed getting to know some of these other characters in a wee bit more detail, and some perspectives that we get are from a character from the first book who I really connected with, so I was really pleased that we were getting some stuff from her perspective as well, and it was phenomenal. I'm not going to say too much about it plot wise because it is a sequel, however it was also a 5-star and I adored it. But I didn't jump right on to the third one then and there, because I had to wait for it to arrive, because I was disorganised. Who knew? So then I read The Collector by John Fowles, and so this is a book about a man, and he collects butterflies and he feels he's quite ostracised from society, and he falls in love with this girl, and instead of trying to court her, he kidnaps her and thinks that that's how she'll fall in love with him. So this had been recommended to me, and I can't remember who recommended it to me, so if it was you, please let me know down below. Or, I mean, maybe you will only want to admit to it once I absolutely slate the book, but it was recommended to me because I was looking for sort of a fucked up book. We all know that I enjoy a good fucked up book, so that's what we were after. And it just didn't really hit the mark for me. So when it was pitched to me, it was pitched as dual perspective, and the sort of my taken away from it was that we would get it from his perspective first, and that maybe it would like portray a life together, and then would get it from her perspective and be like, oh shit, bitch has been kidnapped, like, and we'd be like, oh, I can't believe that I was shipping them all this time, and like he's legitimately kidnapped her, and like it would be a bit of a shock and a bit of a revelation. And that wasn't the case. Like, he is admitting right up front and centre that he is kidnapping her. We get to come along with him while he plans it, while he does it. So like, I certainly didn't ship them at all, and I don't even feel like the kidnap or anything really is that fucked up to count it as a fucked up book. Really, they just talk. Like, he literally kidnaps her, and then they just have like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of conversations, and she tries to escape a couple of times, and then like he punishes her, but like no in a bad way really. He just doesn't talk to her, and then like comes back, and then like they just talk again. So I just didn't feel it was that fucked up a book. However, I did find it very interesting. So there's some really good social commentary in here around class that I think is still quite a prevalent issue in today's society, and there's quite a lot about how he feels ostracised from society, and how he feels like that will then ostracise him from women, and that's why he hasn't had like an average love life. And reading this sort of in the current climate was really interesting to me, because there's obviously been a lot of news reports and stuff recently, and a lot of information coming to light recently about incels, and for anybody who doesn't know what an incel is, it's somebody who classes themselves as involuntarily celibate, so incel for short, and this is predominantly a group of males on the internet, and they have like wee chat rooms and stuff, and they just talk about how much they hate women, and how much they hate other men who are able enough to get women, and like basically just go a bit mental about it and stuff. And it was something that I'd never really heard of before, so it was something that I found quite interesting. So then reading a book like this, where our main character, I think in this day and age would definitely be an incel, was really interesting to me. However, it wasn't interesting enough to make the book a joy to read. Basically the first 3/4 of the book are from our main character's perspective, and then like it flips, and then we get about like 2/4 of the book from her perspective, but it is literally like everything that has happened. So she's decided that she's going to keep a diary, and it's basically just her diary that we get to read. So it is literally just her account of everything that has already happened, even though we've already had it from his perspective. The only difference is there's times in his mind and in his perspective where he's like, is she starting to fall in love with me? Like, is she being genuine when she's saying this or doing this, and is there real affection building here? And in her perspective, she's like, absolutely fucking not. Like, and she's clearly doing it to get free. However, I didn't feel like that was a revelation, because when I was reading it, I'm like, this is obviously so she can get free. So I just felt like that was a bit of a miss for me. And then like the last tiny wee bit of the book, and I mean like maybe the last 20 pages or so, in fact it is less than that, it is this much of the book, was like about the aftermath and what happened. And I just didn't love it. There was parts in it as well where they tried to make her feel almost thankful and appreciative over the fact that he hasn't raped her, and over the fact that he hasn't sexually assaulted her, because other men in his position would. And I'm just like that's not a good thing. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh well, no, I love you because you haven't raped me. Like, it's just not how it works. And I just found them both to be a bit annoying as characters, to be honest. And I just didn't enjoy reading like the same thing again over and over. So other than the interesting discussions, and to be honest with you, I don't even think that the discussions were particularly interesting. I think that I have related them to something else that is happening currently in society that my brain finds more interesting, so maybe I made it more interesting. But anyway, I rated it a 2-star in the end for that reason. Let me get a little sip of my tea. So that is where we are. My first video in the new year, I reckon, will be sort of for my end of year wrap up. So everything that I have been reading now until the end of the year, because I am really enjoying doing these weekly videos. I feel like they are far easier to fit into my schedule, and I feel like the engagement is actually up on them, with them just being that wee bit shorter, and it's far easier for me to sit down and edit a video that's going to be 10 minutes long as opposed to a video that is like about 50. So I am definitely going to keep up the weekly videos. I've enjoyed that they're sort of running a couple of weeks behind, so that if I do get into a wee bit of a slump, then I know that I'm still going to have books to chat to you about and upload about. So I reckon my first couple of videos in the new year will be my end of year wrap up, and I'll probably make that a longer one just so that it isn't split over 2 videos. And then I'll probably do a bit of a Christmas book haul, because like, I have not opened presents yet, but there are certainly some presents that are book shaped. So I would imagine, me being me, my family and Simon and everybody have got me quite a fair few books. So I thought it would be cool if we sat through and we went through those together. And then I will resume my usual weekly wrap-ups. I am enjoying doing them a wee bit more, but please comment down below and let me know if you would like me to maybe shake it up a wee bit and maybe do like a wrap up one week and maybe have it a wee bit longer, no 40 minutes, but maybe even like a 20-minute video where I talk about perhaps 4 books, and then the other week I maybe do a tag or something like that. Let me know, and then obviously we can try a few different things. It'll be fun. So I'm going to do the end of year reading tag now. Simon obviously on the channel has done big Christmas extravaganzas before, and I am not. So like an extravaganza for me is a wrap up and a tag in the one video. So that's what we're doing. So I thought it would be cool to do the end of year tag. I know that everybody has already shipped these out like about a month ago, because they're coming out right about now, like when I am filming this, and they have been coming out for the past couple of weeks, so I'm a wee bit late off the mark, but like it's fine, isn't it? Like it's alright, it's me, so set your expectations low. So the only book this year that I started to read that I haven't finished is The Familiar by Mark Z. Danielewski, and I was planning to read this while we were away on holiday, because like it's a chunky book and I feel like it's just going to require like a lot of sitting down and reading it physically, whereas I usually, if I'm reading a chonker or a book that I really enjoy, I try to split it and do it some on audio and then some physically, but this I feel I'm only going to get out of it if I sit and read it physically. And due to the Rona, we didn't get on holiday and stuff, so I didn't get a chance to really read it and enjoy it properly. I am not going to finish this before the end of the year though. This is definitely going to be a next year venture. I am so intrigued by it, and I always get so excited to sit down and read a book by Mark Z. Danielewski. I think the man's frankly a genius, but it's just so daunting with the size of it. And I got only got 80 odd pages in, and I just wasn't really feeling it yet, and so then that was putting me off a wee bit, because I'm like, like this is like about 800 pages, so like do you really want to just stick it out? So I popped it back on the shelf, and it's something that we will review next year, and hopefully I'll pick up and hopefully love. I feel like I have already been transitioning. I don't really have any specific autumnal books, but like I had said earlier in the video, I feel like sort of October, November, December is either like horror, scary, spoopy books, or it's YA, and I feel like I've already sort of been switching up my reading to that, so currently like reading those books. A new release I'm still waiting for, not that I can think of, but that doesn't mean that there isn't, it just means that I am terribly unprepared. To be honest, I never really get the hype with a lot of new releases. I'm quite susceptible to marketing, I will admit, and quite susceptible to a bit of the old peer pressure. So when there are a lot of books that are being hyped, I usually will pick some of them up, just because I'll be like, right, nah, everybody I love and watch is raving about this book, like I need it, even if it maybe isn't necessarily in my wheelhouse. But I never really like queue up as a book is being released to buy it. I'm not really a huge new release kind of gal, unless it's like a couple of authors that I really follow. Like I will always buy a Chuck Palahniuk book when it comes out. I will always buy that as a new release, and then like no speak to anybody for days while I read it, like every single time. But there's probably nobody else who I really like follow to keep up with. There are obviously series that I read, and if the series has a new instalment, then I'll be looking forward to that and stuff. But other than that, really no. My favourite new release of the year though has been In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland, and I was really hyped for this new release. I got a copy of this on NetGalley, so I read it before it was released and just completely and utterly fell in love with it. So when this was actually getting released to the public, I was like, need a copy, and then ended up pre-ordering a copy but cancelling the pre-order because I got the beautiful Illumicrate edition, and it is just absolutely fucking stunning. So this is probably my most hyped new release of the year. It was phenomenal. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend you to check it out, especially if you're into dark fantasy. It was phenomenal. So the 3 books that I would like to read before the end of the year are Harrow Lake by Kat Ellis. So this was one that was on my sort of October wish list of reads that I just didn't get around to, so I would still love to get around to it. And look how amazing those sprayed yellow edges are. Like, it's actual just like I've highlighted the entire book, which is great. But I think that this is going to give me like really creepy, spooky vibes, which is just great for cuddling up and reading when it is pouring down a rain outside. So I'm really excited to get around to this. Hopefully I'll get to it before the end of the year. Then I have The Hazel Wood by Melissa Albert, and this just sounds like it is going to be a bit creepy, but like so effing wintry. So I've sort of been saving it for this time of year. Ideally, I would just love to be cuddled up at home with fluffy jammies on, fluffy slippers, hot chocolate, and for it to be snowing outside, but like that might not happen, and it might just be a like I'm reading it on the bus like every other day type of sitch. But yeah, it sounds so brilliant, and I think it will just be really creepy and really cosy, so I'm excited for this one. Then is Sinner by Maggie Stiefvater, and this is the short story novella that I was talking about that links to the Shiver series, so I would love to get this in before the end of the year. I'm currently reading Forever. I'm about 3/4 of the way through that. I probably will just pick this up right after Forever, to be honest, because I apparently have no self-control when it comes to Maggie Stiefvater books. So, yep, hope I get round to these 3. I don't think that there's any books that I'm going to read between now and Christmas that could still shock me and become like a favourite. Perhaps Harrow Lake could be like my favourite horror that I've read this year, because a lot of the horror books that I have read haven't really hit the mark for me, so that could definitely take the crown for that. But to be honest, I have read so many amazing books this year that it would be really difficult for any of them to take the top spot. I don't think that anything will knock off In the Ravenous Dark. I don't think anything will knock off the Raven Cycle series. And like Library of the Unwritten was phenomenal. I've had so many great 5-star reads this year that it would be hard for me to pick a particular favourite, so I don't think that any of these ones are going to knock anything off the top. They might just come and join in the pile. So yes, I have started making reading plans for next year. I did a TBR for this year and I tried to stick to it, and I was actually quite decent at it up until the last few months of the year. I feel like there was a lot of books on my TBR that I was genuinely excited to get around to reading, and so I read them like right away because I just wanted to read them. And then there were some books on my TBR that were there for a couple of different reasons. So there was some that were there because I also tried to book journal this year, and so I had like a list of prompts that I was trying to hit. So some of them were just on my TBR so that I could hit those prompts, and I mean, to be honest, I stopped book journaling really early on in the year when we moved house in April, and I like never picked it back up. So anything that was sort of on my list because of those prompts, I ended up not really getting around to. But then as soon as I abolished my TBR, got around to some more of them. I just think that I enjoy reading a lot more when I mood read. So I'm not going to do a TBR for next year. I'm just going to see what I fancy and pick it up as we go. However, I do have some things planned. So me and Ange from Angie's Book Chatter are obviously hosting now to the Coffin Read Along, where we are going to read the entire Stooky Stackhouse series over the course of the year. So I'm absolutely buzzing for that. I mean, I could happily just sit and reread these books right now, so I don't think that I will have any issues with sticking to that TBR because I'm frankly buzzing for it. So you're going to do that, and that's going to last for the entire year. I'll link my announcement video down below so that if you do want to join us, that has all the details and it has the links to our Discord and stuff like that in it as well. Can't wait, mate. Like, I am so effing buzzing. It's going to be phenomenal. And then me and Scott from Gunpowder Friction and Plot are going to buddy read The Rabbits by Terry Miles, and we're going to do this in January. This has been another one that's been on my to read list for a wee while, so I'm very excited about this and I cannot wait to get started on it. We both like either really depressing books or really fucked up books, so we decided to go for a wee bit of a fucked up one together, and can't wait to read it. I also have one more buddy read planned for January, and I do not wish to trigger anyone who has watched this channel for a while, but I'm going to read Shuggy Bane by Douglas Stewart. So when Simon was still on the channel and he and Ange had their Shuggate last year, I actually thought the book sounded really decent, and so I have been looking for an excuse to read it. So Ange was doing a buddy read of this in January with her and Emily from Novelle Novels, and they really kindly asked me if I wanted to join, so I'm so excited for that. Can't wait to read Shuggy Bane, can't wait to reprise all the gifts that I made Ange and Simon being absolute idiots about it. It's going to be phenomenal. So yes, that is my plans so far. And other than that, I'm going to be pretty free form next year. The only thing that I'm really going to try to hit in terms of reading goals is going to be my Goodreads goal. So this year, I sort of tried to reignite my love of reading, and that's partly why I started appearing on BookTube with Simon, and it's partly why I started tracking my reading. Because for the past couple of years I just haven't really been focused on it, or I wouldn't say focused because it's not that it takes effort to focus on it, but I just haven't really been as engaged with it as I have been in previous years. And so for the past couple of years, you'd be lucky if I read a book a month. Like it was bad. So this year I set my Goodreads goal at 25, and I hit that within my first couple of months of doing BookTube, which was great, and I was really excited about it. So then I upped it to 75, which I also hit, so then I just took the punt and upped it to 100. Now currently, as I am filming this, I still have 5 books to go, so I don't know if I'm going to manage to achieve that by the end of the year, but hopefully I will. But next year I'm probably going to set myself a similar target. I'll set myself a target of about 100 books, but as far as what those books are, like I'm just going to read whatever I would like, and then we'll see how we go. There's a couple of book clubs and stuff that are starting next year that I am interested in by some other booktubers that I watch and love, so when it comes around to me reading those sort of books, I'll talk to you a wee bit about the book clubs and stuff. I'm planning to take part in those, even if it isn't every single month, maybe every few months or whatever, I'll read their pick. I have Suki, I've got a couple of buddy reads in January, but that is it in terms of plans. I am up for doing more buddy reads, so if anybody is interested in reading anything that is YA fantasy or horror, let me know. We can have a chat, we can see if there's anything on our mutual lists. But other than that, just going to read what I want. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope that you are having a lovely Christmas day. I hope that it is filled with family and laughter and good food and friends, and hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.